Frelimo, the movement which is directing the armed struggle in Mozambique and is now in virtual control of the northern fifth of the countryside, is engaged in more than military action. It is also carrying out programs of social and economic reconstruction for the people of these areas, establishing schools, health centers, and modernizing agricultural techniques. I hope that by coming to Britain, I shall be able to inform the increasingly interested British public of the work we are now doing in Mozambique, and that the British people will put pressure on their government to take a less pro-Portuguese position on our problems.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another exciting episode of Right Place, Right Time podcast. I'm your host, Stephen Micah. Today, I am very excited because we're going to talk about an African colossus, a legendary African Pan-Africanist, a father to a nation, and an inspiration to many. He was the first president of the Mozambican independence movement, and this is where my poor language skills get exposed. Fuente do Libertação de Mozambique. I know I've butchered that Portuguese, but I'm sure our guest will correct me. So, popularly known as Frelimo, the Mozambican Liberation Front. So we are talking about Dr. Comrade Eduardo Chivambo Mondlane, the first president of Frelimo. As usual, for such conversations, the common approach is to look for professors, historians, political analysts, or people we call experts. But today, we are very privileged as we get to know more about Dr. Mondlane from a voice of royalty. If you listen keenly to the background, you'll hear the sound of horse hoofs and carriages driving off after dropping her off in our studio. The bodyguards are all over the place, and if you look, you'll see some of them strategically sitting outside the office, just in case I get some funny ideas. Today, we have the best and the finest of a city formerly known as Lourenço Marques, and now known as Maputo in Mozambique. Her Highness, Janet Rodrigues Mondlane. Janet, welcome to Right Place, Right Time podcast.
Wow, thank you so much. So undeserving, but thank you.
How was my Portuguese, by the way? I know it's terrible from an English-speaking country. Yeah.
Yes, you did very well.
Yeah, okay, that's fine. I'm sure by the time we finish this conversation, I'll have learned some nuances and pronunciations in Lusophone. Good. Listeners, allow me to read a brief write-up I have on Janet. So born in Maputo, Mozambique, Janet Rodrigues Mondlane, again, and then that name again, she will correct me on how to pronounce it, was raised by her mother, Chud Mondlane, whose strength and influence continues to shape her life and work. She moved to the United States as a young lady, at a young age, navigating identity across cultures, a journey that informs both her professional perspective and creative voice. She holds a degree from Middlebury College and Seattle University of Law and is a licensed attorney. So I have to be very careful everything I say. Janet is an international development professional with a strong track record in peace building, donor-funded programming, and strategic partnership in fragile and conflict-affected contexts. I have no idea what that means, but it sounds like something Janet only Janet will do. Alongside her professional work, Janet is deeply invested in storytelling and creative expression. She is the founder of Chuden, and we shall talk more about that, a cloth line rooted in memory, identity, and connection, and is currently developing Ambiguous, a podcast exploring the nuances of identity, belonging, and diaspora. She's also an avid baker, and I'm enjoying some of her cake, just kidding, and a lover of historical fiction. Again, but the most important thing and why she's on this pod. She is the granddaughter of Dr. Eduardo Chivambo Mondlane. And even by the name, you can tell because the name she carries is the name of the Dr. Mondlane's wife, Janet Mondlane. So Janet, welcome to Right Place, Right Time podcast. I will make sure I insert drum rolls here.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, good stuff. Now, before I go on, I just want to big up a friend of this pod, Clarence J. Mwamba, a top Zambian author of the book Crash of the Buffalo and Seconds Out, who actually linked me up with Janet. Jay was a guest on in one of our episodes and talked about the Zambian air crash that killed the team in 1993. So Jay, thank you so much for the hookup. Thank you for linking me up with Janet. And I hope you get to enjoy this from your lovely home in New York. Good stuff. So Janet, I'm sure you must be wondering why we roped you in onto this thing. So let me give you something to show you that you're in very good company. The BBC normally does very nice documentaries. I'm talking about the radio. So for I think for about 5 years, in the last 5 years ago, they started running a program called The Bomb. And basically it captures various historical moments in terms of the nuclear bomb. So the first series they had was on some guy called some nuclear father. Sorry, I'm forgetting his name. A Hungarian nuclear physicist. I'll remember his name. The second episode was on Klaus Fuchs, who was the British guy who sold the secrets to the Russians. And now they've been running the third series of The Bomb, and they've been focusing on the Cuban Missile Crisis. Now, they took a very different approach because they brought in the granddaughter of Nikita Khrushchev, and they brought in the grandson of J.F. Kennedy. So the two sat down and they were telling the story from their own point of view, from the Russian side. So Nikita Khrushchev's granddaughter talks about what was happening with his grandfather, and JFK's nephew, actually the son to RFK, Robert F. Kennedy's, who was the Attorney General then, talks about what was happening on the American side. And it was very interesting hearing the worldview from the grandchildren of these great people. Now, we as a pod are very, very grateful because we get to talk to another granddaughter of an African giant. So, I mean, we're in good company. If the BBC are doing what we're doing, we're in good company. So thank you. Again, I'll not stop saying thank you. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Good stuff.
And that's extremely interesting. I would love to watch.
Yeah, I'll send you the link. I'll send you the link after. I'll send you the link after this conversation. I mean, you love it. You love it. Good. Now, Dr. Eduardo Chivambo Mondlane, who is your grandfather. I don't know what you call your. What's the name you use for granddad in your language? Probably you can start from there.
We in Mozambique, the official language is Portuguese. So I can only tell you in Portuguese, which is avó.
Avó. Okay, that's good. That's good. There's a friend of mine who normally, he's also a mentor, who normally tells us that sometimes when say your dad is a president, when you walk into State House and you tell the guards, do you say I'm coming to see dad, or do you say I'm coming to see the president? So in your case, I know sometimes you'll be talking about grandpa or talking about Dr. Mondlane. So feel free to go in whichever direction you want to go, because those two personalities are important to you. Yeah.
Yeah, we actually grew up in an English-speaking home, even in Mozambique. So I would feel naturally it's much more natural to call him grandpa.
Yeah. Okay. Good. So for someone who's hearing this name for the first time, and I'm sure there are many people who are hearing about Dr. Eduardo Mondlane for the first time, I'd want us to take you way, way back to where he was born, when he was born, and some of the things you can tell about his early life growing up in Mozambique.
Yeah, so it's Eduardo Chivambo Mondlane, and he was born on June 20th, 1920. And June 20th is a date that even till today, we often stop, reflect, and commemorate who he was. He was born the son of a chief in Wajahan village in Gaza province in Mozambique. So Maputo, the capital, is at the tip. You can actually see the map at the tip of Mozambique. And Gaza province is just above Maputo province, more inland. And he grew up as a shepherd in Wajahan until around the age of 10. But in that time, he was actually, his father had 8 wives. And his mother used to grow up telling him to go learn the magic of the white people, and really emphasizing through that, there was an emphasis always on education. And I mentioned the wives to also say that he was very close to one of the wives who was not his mother, named Chud, who he then later named my mother after. So I know in your introduction, Chud Mondlane was his second daughter, who passed now in 2024. Sorry, not second daughter, second child, first daughter. And I'm her daughter. And yeah, so just to go back to his early life, he studied in Cambine. He had eventually he was very involved in the church, and the Swiss missionary church. And at one point he was in Cambine, which is not far, to an agricultural station where he learned techniques for cultivating crops in dry areas. And I remember growing up and always hearing this story, which I think often when you grow up, you never know what's true, what is retold stories to take away lessons and representations of the person and also where we come from. But I remember always hearing a story about how he so in Wajahan, there's an area called the Sacred Forest, and everyone in the community, I think even till today, don't believe that anything grows in the sacred forest. And I just remember hearing a story that he didn't agree and insisted that you could actually plant here, and did, and planted. I don't remember what fruit or he planted there, but that it did grow. And that just also goes to show who he was, even during that time, at a young age. But he worked with the Presbyterian Church, and he was very involved in the Youth League and even the Methodist Church, because at the time these churches were very against the Portuguese colonial regime. And so he was very involved, both from a religious perspective, but also ideologically. And through that, he was sort of a rising star. And someone had told a man by the name of André Clerc, who many have heard of when they hear of Eduardo Mondlane. And André Clerc was part of the church, and had Eduardo, my grandpa, had my grandpa come to Lourenço Marques, formerly Maputo, well, now known as Maputo, the capital. And he was actually stationed at a hospital in Chamankulu, where he was cleaning the operation wing of the church. And apparently the nurses would complain that he was always singing. And so André Clerc had him come to his house, and decided, listen, you'll work here as a house help. And he started working there, and he had, I believe, 3 daughters. And eventually, while there, he ended up tutoring the daughters in mathematics because he was quite intelligent. And they taught him French. And I believe by the end of his life, he, I think, spoke 7 languages.
Oh,
He,
7.
of course, so of course his mother tongue, Shangan, Portuguese, French. I know, I'm pretty sure he also knew Afrikaans fluently, English, and I don't know the last 2.
Yeah.
But and then essentially André Clerc, the Swiss missionary, sort of took responsibility for his education and supported him in gaining access to scholarships. And that's what started his education and time abroad.
Wow. Okay, that's good. I mean, that's to be honest. This. I mean, the story you're telling seems like it cuts across Africa because majority of the early education was done by the missionaries, and depending on who the colonizers were. So, I mean, the Presbyterian also here in Kenya, the Anglicans had also had some experience. If the American, I think the Friends, what call the Friends Church. I mean, they were all here. So it seems like the same story was happening there. There's some 2 things you've said that have really caught my attention. Number one is your mom is actually named after one of the mothers of Dr. Mondlane, which is amazing because most of the time people will go for their own mother when they're naming their names, not what you call a stepmother. I mean, that's to me that already shows the kind of man we're dealing with. Interesting. It's good to know that. Yeah, okay, it's good.
Yeah.
So he grows up in the village. Does the full education, the full setup that was there at that particular time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and so he actually through his relationship with Andre Clerc, he was able to get access to study in South Africa, and so he went to the university, to Wits University.
Yeah, Wits, yeah.
Yeah, and while there, he actually he really stood out. I think no pressure to ask grandchildren or anybody else inspired by this story, but he always tends to rise. And he actually got chosen in a class of all white students. He was chosen to represent Wits at a conference. And that then brought the attention of the apartheid government, and questioning why was a class of white students choosing a Black representative. So actually, upon returning from the conference, he was informed that his visa would not be renewed, and he was expelled from Wits. And he was actually at the time preparing for his exams, and he wasn't able to continue. And the church did support in trying to reverse that decision. But from there, he transitioned and went to Portugal to study. And he was even offered a scholarship to go to the US as well. But my inkling, and maybe this is also documented, there was a bit of that philosophy that trying to understand not only the white people's magic, but also specifically Portugal, right, as the colonial government in Mozambique. But before he did, André Clerc and my grandfather actually in 1946 had co-authored an autobiography about my grandfather called Chitlangu, which I highly recommend. But he authored it as Chitlangu because he didn't want to expose himself to the colonial authorities. And the autobiography was really about his early life, being the son of a chief, but it wasn't authored in his name. But then, so then he went to Lisbon on scholarship to the University of Lisbon. And in that time, he was actually offered to work for the Portuguese government, which he refused. So he ended up accepting that initial scholarship to study in the US. It was a Phelps-Stoke fund that was arranged through the Presbyterian Church. Okay. And so he went to Oberlin College in 1951 to 1953, where he studied, he got his bachelor degree. And because he had done studying prior, he actually joined as a sophomore or junior. So he did, I think, about 2 years instead of 4. But he got his bachelor's degree in sociology. And to forecast, when I moved to the US with my mother, sort of when you introduced me, that's where we went. So my mom went to go back to finish her undergraduate education because my mother was a singer, and so had a quite successful singing career, but then decided to go back to school, and we went to Oberlin. So when I moved to Mozambique at the age of 8 with my mother, we went to the college my grandfather went to, which was such a privilege. And lived on campus together.
Wow. Interesting. 2 questions, and I just want to take you back. As number one, being the son, and probably to be a little bit controversial, being in the Kenyan independence, the colonial setup, for anyone to be a chief, say during the independence time, you had to be not really pro the colonialists, but I think they were the ones who appointed the chiefs, if I'm not wrong. I don't know how, would you know how your grandfather ended up being a chief? And probably number 2 will be, not related to that, as Dr. Mondlane was growing up, was he having, at the early stage of his life, was he having this fire for independence, or he was simply just a young man going through the ropes like any other young man? You can take them in whatever order.
So just to clarify, his father was the chief. But that's a great question. I can't answer that, but what I can do, I can look into it because now I'm curious. I actually don't know how his father became chief, but then to your question about did he have, was he, I think his mother had a lot to do with that sentiment. But obviously I think she had some influence. I think also, of course, the church. I think it would be remiss to say, like I said, the Presbyterian Church and the Methodist Church both carried these values of justice and determination. So that had a lot to do with it as well.
And I'm pretty sure. And I'm pretty sure the South African experience also did something for him, because when you look at someone like Mahatma Gandhi, it is the South African experience, his South African experience in terms of how he was, for lack of a word, discriminated, that made him now become the Mahatma Gandhi that we know. So probably, yes, that experience in South Africa also helped to stoke the fire.
I would say ultimately, and you'll see as later in his story that it was really just in strong values of justice and strong values in dignity that were originated from his religious beliefs, but then evolved into every facet of life, which honestly, that's what it should be, right? I think also people are surprised by the role of the church because I think we're also a bit, that's not the experience we always get to have about the church today.
Good. So he expelled from South Africa, Wits University, goes to Portugal, Then the Portuguese government approaches him, says no, goes to the States. They've told us he studies for 2 years. I mean, the first after 2 years, he gets his degree. And something else happens in the States. Well, at Right Place, Right Time, we love love stories. We love love stories as well, as much as we love history. So we have to go there. We have to go there. So while he's doing his studies, he just doesn't study. He sees somebody else. So tell us that story.
It's amazing. Like the story of Eduardo Mondlane, and then who you'll learn is now Janet Mondlane, is it's incredible because it's both a story of independence and struggle for justice and self-determination, and it's a love story. And we all embrace that as a family. At Oberlin, he befriended a pastor named Ed Hawley. And I had the chance to meet and be a part of this community later in life. And this pastor did a lot of work around desegregation. And my grandfather through that relationship, was very sought after to speak on Africa and and at this point also conversations around and the beginning of independence for a few and many across the world. And he spoke at church retreats. And so in 1951, he spoke at a retreat in Lake Geneva in Wisconsin. And Janet Ray Johnson, who was 17 years old, was there.
Oh my goodness! Oh, Dr. Mondlane! Oh my goodness!
But he was running. She was the one who had her eyes set on him. And you'll see she later, like in 2024, I believe. What year are we in? But a few years ago, maybe a bit longer ago, she released a trilogy called The Echo of Your Voice, Echo de tua voz. And it's a compilation of letters that were exchanged between them after this time of meeting. And you'll really see she was wise beyond her years, knew what she wanted. And just to give a background on her, she is the granddaughter and great-granddaughter of immigrants from Sweden and Norway. And her maternal great-grandparents were farmers who immigrated to the U.S., I believe, during the famine. And her parental grandparents also left Sweden to the U.S. in search of a better life. And also a very conservative religious family. Well, I shouldn't say also. A conservative family, and also with a strong foundation in religion. And through religion was where she also learned the value of liberation and social justice. So Janet Ray Mondlane, I would say, was not any 17-year-old, and was very struck by Eduardo, my grandfather. And she actually, the story that I was told was she went to see him speak and then kept going thereafter. I think you were supposed to go to other speakers, and she just kept going to his sessions. And just had her eyes set on him. And of course, he did not appreciate the age gap. But then they started exchanging letters, and she really, and they got to know each other. And so this trilogy is also where you can see a lot of this. And I would go on a limb to say, and I hope when a man loves a woman, maybe he would appreciate this. I don't know. But I feel when you read those letters, you just see that Eduardo Mondlane was an incredible individual, thinker. I've already shared a fraction of him, and he was extremely highly intelligent. But I will go as far as to say, when you read these letters, the prose of Janet, of my grandmother, and just how she thought of the thought. Yeah, she was a really impressive woman and
Yes.
still is.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, and so they met, they exchanged letters, and my grandfather continued on his education. He did his master's in 1952, 53. Now I'm forgetting where he did his master's. But then he did his PhD as well. And then in 1956, and in this time too, right, my grandmother's parents were not pleased that my
Actually, that was my next question.
Yeah, I mean, it's an interracial couple in the 1950s. And despite their objections, when my grandfather was completing his PhD, they got married in 1956. And I recently learned, because of course, like I thought through kind of, what do I know? What is like a myth? What is folklore? And then little gaps I went and I asked my aunt. And one thing that I recently learned in like preparing for this was that she got married. So the way my aunt said it was, your grandmother got married in red. And I'm like, what does that mean? Like, is it like, I don't know.
Dress or what?
Annulment? Yeah, you understood. I was like, was it just not like a legitimate wedding, like in red, you know? No, she got married in a red dress. We shared this also to say that, just the type of woman my grandmother was. Very, I wouldn't say rebellious, but just, yeah, went to the beat of her own drum, with a foundation of strong values. So then they had a very difficult relationship, well, particularly her with her parents, and was the one sort of coaching my grandmother and saying, they will come around, we'll have kids, they will come around. And she was quite more militant about it. We don't, just disagree, they're wrong. And he was a lot more. And, when I think about like racial dynamics today, I don't think it's something you can ask people to do when they are at the receiving end of that type of rejection for the sake of the color of their skin. But I just hope that stories like this can inspire us and allow us to naturally reach that sense of, how can I say, of, I think, understanding and forgiveness and just from a place of love. But I don't think it can be imposed. It really needs to be organic and come from you. Yeah, so that's how he met Janet, who, as I'm named after her.
Wow. That's a lovely story. I mean, to be honest, when because I could only find a limited material about your grandmother, and the first picture that came to me was she was fully in, 100% in. She was committed. You know, when they normally say, when the pilot is taking off, when they say, we are committed, I think that that was her. She was locked in 100%. That's the picture I get when I just see some of the stuff she did. Okay. Yeah. And where is she at the moment? Is she alive?
Yes, she is.
Oh, okay. And where is she?
She's in Maputo.
Oh, nice.
In Mozambique. Yeah, nice. She never went back to the US. Yeah, and she's, I think, like, goodness. Okay, she was born 1953, right? No, that's my mother. 1932. Hang on.
Yeah.
What year are we in?
2026.
Minus 1935. Yeah, 1935. So I think she's like 90, 91.
Goodness. Yeah, still going strong, or she's
No, so she she has health battles, but still going strong. So I'm just like, I don't know how she does it.
So Janet Rai Mondlane, if you get to see a clip of this, I salute you. Good stuff. Thank you so much for sharing that. That's awesome. I mean, such stories warm my heart. It's so good to hear about humanity and just. I mean, that story is amazing. Goodness. Well, all right. Let's go on. So yeah, gets married. Do they have children immediately, or does he continue to study and do whatever he was doing apart from studying in the States?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I can answer that because I technically know when my mom was born. I think she was 1958 plus 66. Yeah, my mom was born 1958, so she was the second child. My uncle was just a year before. So yes, they had at 1957. Yeah, right away. 1 year later.
Oh, yeah. Boom. Good man. So that's Dr. So the firstborn is Eduardo Jr. That's your uncle.
Exactly.
Okay. And where is he? Is he alive? Where is he at the moment?
He is he works between Mozambique and the UK.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Good. Then your mother, Chud, is the second born.
Chud.
Okay. And then there's Nyeleti. Is it Nyeleti? Or what's it?
Nyeleti Brooke Mondlane. Yeah. So she's the youngest, and she works in government in Mozambique. She is the minister of, I'm trying to say, like, former combatants. I'm trying to translate in my head. Ministério de Ex-Combatentes. Yeah.
So all the three were born when Doctor was still in the States. All of them.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, they were all born in the US.
Okay. All right, that's fine. Yeah. So, and at this particular point, has he started getting involved in the independence movements, the Pan-African push for independence, when he's still in doing his PhD, or had he started all those things? Or no?
So actually, in 1957, he became a research officer at the UN. I think the trustee division, and there he. That's, I think, really where everything started coming together, right? Like, obviously, there's influences of his ideology and leadership capabilities, but at the UN is, I think, when things started to concretizar. Yeah.
Concretize.
Yeah. Yes. And so he actually would express the desire for independent Mozambique using nonviolent means. He even, during the time, did a UN mission to Mozambique, and it was just becoming very clear that he had strong leadership qualities. And in that time, too, he realized that he couldn't engage in political activity while at the UN. So he ended up resigning in 1963 and accepted a faculty position at Syracuse University in the US. And was an assistant professor of anthropology. And so in that time, and it just coincided as well with then President Julius Nyerere, who was almost serving as a space to support, and as you correctly opened the conversation, was really looking at not just independence for Tanzania, but also for Africa at large. And so, yeah, my grandfather emerged as sort of this ideal leader in Julius Nyerere's eyes in that time as well, because I'm not going into detail because I don't know at which point everyone met, but during this time you have this very like anti-colonial school of thought that is everywhere, and they're engaging with each other. I mean, you have exchange between Julius Nyerere, you have Che, you have so a lot of these minds were kind of coming about at the same time, crossing paths. And so it's also a moment, right? Like it's not just who he was, but the moment he was in and who he was in that time. And that being said, he also really shifted from realizing that the UN was not going to be the space that would facilitate a nonviolent liberation for Mozambique. And also, he began to drift from, not drift, but missionary groups in Mozambique actually were in opposition to his interracial marriage. Even withdrew in support in many ways. And he was then at the same time in tandem receiving support from American Christian networks that were engaged in the African decolonization process, that were a bit more secular, and really also thinking about reshifting his approach from thinking of a nonviolent struggle to coming around to the idea that they would need to take up arms.
So I mean, and it made sense because, I mean, you're very right. At that particular time, the 50s, the 60s, there was a lot of push for independence. I mean, doing some of the research, I could see that, of course, Mozambique was under the foothold of Antonio Salazar, the Portuguese dictator, and him going around. I mean, I read that he when he was in Portugal, he would meet guys like Amica Cabral, who was in Equatorial Guinea, Agostinho Neto, Angola. I mean, they were all pushing. So you can imagine when you sit around these people, I mean, they light up your fire in terms of independence. So I totally understand. Now it makes sense why someone will leave the UN to go and push for the independence of their country. So he boldly makes this move. And again, coming back to your grandmother, I can imagine him going home and telling Janet that, honey, pack your bags. We are going back to Africa. I'm not sure ever told you how this happened and how he delivered the news, or she knew this was going to happen.
So I don't know how the story goes, but I will say that in my own process as a grandchild, and I'll share more about what that experience, not that it's very insightful, but I will say that in the process of trying to understand, and slightly angry, to be honest, why with a family you lead an independence struggle, because of course there's a high cost. And in trying to understand that, my mother told me that it was very much a group decision. And not just that, I think knowing my grandmother, her story, who she is today, I think it was the only decision for them. That's just what united them. That's just what drove them and gave them purpose. And it was very much both of them. My instinct would say that when he came home that day and said, let's do it, it was probably already an ongoing conversation, and she was pushing for it to happen. But then they do end up going. And of course, Julius Nyerere, in conversations, offered up Tanzania as a place to really form, unify. Because Julius Nyerere was aware that Mozambique had these parties that were seeking independence, but that it needed to be unified, and really understood that Eduardo Mondlane would, given that he was had this education, had this background, that he could actually be the one to unify these parties.
So did they go straight to Dar es Salaam? I know that Dar es Salaam at that particular time was like the resistance capital of Africa. Did they go straight to Dar es Salaam, or did they go to Mozambique first?
No, they went to Dar es Salaam.
Oh,
I
straight to
believe,
Dar es Salaam.
though, we do know of a story, and actually you're right, where my grandfather sent some funds to a cousin in Wajahan, the village where he's from, and to build a house for him and his family. And it didn't get done, and
Of course.
yeah, nothing's changed.
If it was this day and age, guys take a photo of a neighbor's house and send it to you and tell you, I mean, we're going very well.
Yeah, exactly. And actually, Jahan now, because of, just a lot of my family efforts, the Eduardo Mondlane Foundation, there's, I highly recommend, if you're ever in Mozambique or anyone listening is ever in Mozambique, you can visit Majahan, and there's a tour you can take, and you can see that house that took a long time to get built. But also the hut where my grandfather was born, and and just really take a walk in his shoes in his early childhood.
Yeah.
But they went to Dar es Salaam
Okay.
in 1963.
Yeah.
Because actually they were already working on the formation of Frelimo, which Frente de Libertação de Moçambique, Mozambican Liberation Front. And so that was already work that was happening abroad. And then they relocated to Dar. And my grandfather resigned from Syracuse, and they settled there. And my grandmother actually then led a lot of the funding that they did for Frelimo, and had relationships with Nordic countries, and actually received a large grant from the Ford Foundation to establish the Mozambique Institute. Which was a secondary school, I believe.
Okay. So she not only was just a wife, she was also heavily involved in this movement. That's amazing. Goodness.
Yes.
Yeah. Good. Okay. That's good. Yeah. So, wow. So, by the time he's coming to Dar es Salaam, Frelimo has not been, it's just been formed. Because at what time does he become president? Was he president when, did I appoint him president when before he came, or he became president once he came to Tanzania? And they unified
so actually, before, I believe it was before he relocated, there was, he was still based in the US, but there was Congress in Dar in 1962. Where the three parties that were seeking independence, it was Edenamo, Nami, and
Manu, I think.
Manu, yes.
Yeah.
And so they had a Congress, and he was elected the president of the newly formed Frelimo.
Okay. And of course, now getting into this role, which means it exposes him now into now he's on head-on collusion with the Portuguese hegemony, and so that means you basically going into armed struggle and also non-violent struggle. Would you know if he was ready for whichever way this movement went?
Yeah, I think my impression is that by that point they understood that it had to be an armed struggle, right? Because I think he left that. My impression is that got left behind at the point that conversations were being had at the UN, and obviously also like-minded leaders, and really realizing that the only way this will be able to move forward. So Frelimo was already established with that plan in mind.
Okay. Yeah. So I mean, you can imagine, I'm speaking of this in hindsight, after, having known about him later. because we know about Marcelinho dos Santos, we know about Samora Machel, and of course we know of Joaquim Chissano because I saw him as president. So, and you can imagine with all these giants, your grandfather was like their head. That shows how much they respected him as a person. So as a country, up to this day, do people really like hold him to that regard? Because when I was reading this, I was like, goodness, how come we weren't taught about this guy? And all these people came off him.
Yeah, in Mozambique, I like I said, I do think I would say my generation and a bit younger, obviously it's shifting.
Yeah.
But no, we are very aware of Eduardo Mondlane, his story, what he represents. And you really see that as well in just how you're received, like this unearned respect. And you really see that
Free
with
lunch?
people.
I'm just kidding.
No, but just this, when you admire someone so much that even meeting their grandchild that has done nothing to merit this, you even just saying like, oh, meeting you is just so such a privilege. But that is not a reflection at all on meeting me. It's the respect that people have for what he did and who he was. And you see that sometimes even in young people. So in Mozambique, we did grow up with this story.
And now having a home in Dar, leading this charge from Dar, of course, Mozambique is just down on the south of Tanzania. So I can imagine all the people who are running away, probably exilees from Mozambique, were all ended up in your home. I'm sure probably in your house at night, in your grandfather's house. There was no place to put your leg because probably guys were sleeping all over the place. What was the experience of your parents being raised by such a person? Did they feel like dad is so concentrating on the country more than us? Or were they like, it's something he has to do, so we just have to take it as children? Did they tell you, forget about your mom, did she tell you her experience living in such a house? Yeah.
Well, I would say it was very much a mutual, our parents are in this. But I will say my grandfather was a lot first of all, I grew up being told that every morning he would wake up and jump rope. Like he really prioritized his health and fitness. He was an incredible father, I've been told. And I believe too, always picked them up from school, if I get that right. And just, and from my impression of how they grew up, they did get to spend quite a significant amount of time with them.
That's good. That's good.
And of course, all these, as to your point, all these sort of actors and people involved in Frelimo, yes, they were also a part of the kids' lives, and there is sort of this affinity to this day, and this blend of I see some themes here of just this concept that success can't be married with love, and that just sits at the intersection of the story of Eduardo Mondlane and Janet Mondlane, but also this belief that personal must be exclusive of your professional work, and those two things also were quite married in this story for them as a family. But I will say, it was really funny. One day I was with my mom and my grandmother, and we were having lunch, and it was just a few years ago, like 2 or 3 years ago. And I just remember us sitting there and my mom reminiscing on some story like, oh, Mom, remember when we were at the house in Dar and there was a snake, and you and Dad didn't let us go to the door because there was a snake. And my grandmother's face just immediately remembered the story, but then you could see on her face that it was like that's not what happened. I'm not joking. 0 words between my grandmother, my mom, and I. No words were exchanged, but essentially what was said was, yes, I remember that. It wasn't a snake, and it was actually a security threat on us and our family.
Oh.
But we're not going to clarify. And it was like, okay, I get it.
Okay. Yeah.
And, this is a 64-year-old woman having a conversation with her mother.
Oh, yeah.
And of course, this wasn't lost on them. Maybe when they were young, but certainly not once losing their father. But of course, you still have these little moments that you really thought was just a snake,
Yeah.
Yeah. So that just, I think, illustrates a bit of what that experience was like.
Yeah. So, thank you so much. I mean, we are learning so much from this. So that particular time, we're talking about the 60s. So majority of the African countries are starting to get independence. So, for example, in East Africa, Kenya, Uganda, Tanzania, so many, Ghana already in 58, I think 57 already, or 54, I can't remember, already had independence. But for some strange reason, the Portuguese colonized countries, some of them were still under the yoke. So, for example, at this particular time, Angola was still under the same colonialists, so Mozambique. So, because when I look at the dates, most of them got independence in the 70s. So, you can imagine 65, 66, 67. There's a big push from your all these revolutionaries in terms of trying to get independence. And with that come some fatalities. So, for example, I read about some of his comrades. So, for example, James Scott Sigauke was killed in Zambia. Some other guys were killed, being killed by these Portuguese guys. As these things started to happen, did your family start feeling like, goodness, what did we get ourselves into? Or an element of fear or being careful how they go to school? What was that the kind of life they were living, heading towards 69?
Yeah, there was definitely an understanding between my grandfather and grandmother that this was getting dangerous, and and potentially that he was a target. And this is the point that I think to this day I often struggle with. But yes, there was at this point a meeting of the minds and deciding, okay, do we go forth? Because this is a risk we are undertaking. And it was a very mutual decision between the two of them. Yeah. And of course, as you know, and what this is, the foreseeing is that, they did lose him as an outcome of the time. Yeah. That the Portuguese were not letting go easily, right? And that did eventually happen, and I believe they really understood that was the risk they were running.
Okay, and that risk will soon become a reality. On February 3rd, 1969, in Dar es Salaam, Tanzania, Dr. Eduardo Mondlane began his day as usual. He stopped at the Frelimo offices based on Kuruma Street, collected his mail, and left with them, heading to Oyster Bay, home of his best friend, Betty King. It was there, in that quiet place, that he began going through all the letters and the mails and the packages he had received. Amongst them was a package containing a book. When he opened it, the device hidden inside the book exploded, killing him instantly. Investigations have pointed towards Portuguese secret police, otherwise known as PID, with links to networks such as Aginta Press. Operatives like Casimiro Monteiro have also been mentioned and associated with the attack. At the same time, there were divisions within Frelimo, which have led to questions whether internal tensions would also have played a role. To this day, the full truth remains contested. But what is certain, even in the face of that risk, Dr. Mondlane chose to continue with the struggle. and that choice would shape everything that followed. Was he buried in TZ, or was he taken to be buried in the homeland in Gaza?
Yeah, he's in the Heroes, Praça de Heróis. How do I say that? Yeah, Heroes Plaza. Yeah, so as you enter Mozambique, Maputo from the airport, there's this sort of roundabout, and in the center, there's a star-looking structure, and the heroes of Mozambique are buried in there. So that's where he is now. But
yes, okay. And did the family ever try to find out who was responsible? Because when I was reading, everyone was pointing a finger somewhere else. Someone was pointing to suspecting some guys in Frelimo did it. Some were suspecting it's the Portuguese. Some were suspecting it's the CIA. Did the family ever pursue this route, or they just said, "Now we"?
I'm not sure. Yeah, I'm not too sure. I think, to be honest, I think that no.
Okay.
If you think about it, yeah. And then I think also there's just this common understanding that it was PED, the Portuguese police.
Yeah.
And and then conspirators. Yeah,
Okay.
but no, nothing concrete.
Okay. Yeah, that's fine. I mean, hopefully one day, because I know for, let's say, Patrice Lumumba in Zaire, now dear Congo, eventually some of the CIA files came out, and we were able to see who did it. So hopefully one day something will be declassified and we'll get to know about it. Yeah, but it's to be honest, I really wanted, and when you've given us so much in terms of your granddad, and of course anything to do with his death can be, there's so many things online so people can look it up, but the most important thing is to know who he is, who he was, and that's what we're here to do. So so let's go on. So Mozambique eventually gets independence. Yes, Samora Machel becomes president. Are any of your families involved in those governments in any way? Apart from, you've said your sister your aunt is in the current government, but apart from that, were they involved? They say for the legacy, because of the legacy of your Dr. Mondlane, then they were part of the government.
Yeah, no, just my aunt, and she's been involved. And let's not forget my grandmother. She continued to play a huge role in Frelimo. She was very active, and even started the Red Cross in Mozambique. And stayed extremely committed to the struggle for independence.
That's it.
And
I like.
Continue to participate, because she also led the schooling, right? Because northern Mozambique gained independence much earlier, while my grandfather was still alive. And they would have Mozambicans that would come to Dar to study, and the schools were all being run and funded through the efforts of my grandmother.
Yeah. Okay. It's good. Yeah. Most of the time when a husband dies, the wives probably regress, or some probably go back to where they came from, for lack of a better word. But I'm so impressed that Janet chose to remain, chose to continue the legacy of Dr. Mondlane, and her impact is felt up to this day. I remember watching a symposium on YouTube. I think it was organized by one of the universities, and I saw her speaking, talking about some of the things she's doing. And I even saw your mother do like a poem or a spoken word or some song, which I plan to clip and put here.
And you didn't come to hear me, but some of you came to hear Chud, and so Chud, if you would come and grace us with your music.
I sing here tonight for my father, who used to sit here in this room and study, and it is to him that I sing. There is a place where the sea washes the land, where the ocean is darkened by the bloodied sand and robs my soul. I am a child without heart, a mother with no taste, my tongue burnt by the salt of armed men. Whose weapons were these that buried my future, where only darkness lives and the land sleeps as dead? Now there is no ocean in my eyes, no music in my laugh. I'm a woman who burns to the rhythm of a fire that consumes all. Tomorrow, I bring you the beauty of perfumed things, the freshness of rivers, and the green colors of my country. And between my fingers, I'll hold the cup, brimming with the wine that sweetens the song and extinguishes the pain. Há lugar onde o mar se encontra com a terra. Onde o mar escurece na areia sangrante e leva a alma. Sou uma criança sem coração, a mãe sem paladar, queimada de sal pelo homem com a arma na mão. De quem será essa arma? Quem terá meu destino? Me levar pelos caminhos onde só mora o silêncio e a terra dorme morta. Já não há mar nos meus olhos, só no meu corpo, música no meu riso. Sou uma mulher que arde ao ritmo do fogo que tudo consome. Amanhã trago a beleza, coisas perfumadas, frescura dos rios, cores verdes do meu país. Trago entre os dedos a taça, donde o vinho amadurece o canto e se extingue a dor. Moçambique, Moçambique, Moçambique. Mozambique, 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 Mozambique extingue a dor.
Oh, wonderful.
So that people can see her. Yeah, so I'm glad that you guys didn't plug off even after your grandfather died, that they've stuck on and made sure that it was all about Mozambique.
Yeah.
And now there's a university named after him. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so that university had already existed, I believe, during the Portuguese rule. No, yeah, because it was founded in the 60s, but it was renamed in his honor in the 70s. Yeah.
Okay. And I'm sure there are streets and probably other schools that are named after. Is he on the banknotes as well?
He was. So I have one. He used to be on the
nice
and Vetikai. Now it's Samora.
Oh, that's Samora.
Yeah, but we got lucky and saved some. And but then, yeah, no. And then, I, as you can tell, grew up for 19 years in the US because my mom went back to school, and then I carried on my schooling. And I went back in my 20s, and I was so lost, right? Because I left when I was 8. And Eduardo Mondlane, Avenida Eduardo Mondlane, which is Eduardo Mondlane Avenue, was like whenever I would get lost, if I could find Eduardo Mondlane Avenue, yeah, then I can get anywhere again, which is it's not ironic. Yeah. And then of course, I mean, to be honest, I think what's been tough is February 3rd is also like names of schools. It's also a national holiday. It's Heroes Day.
Oh, nice. Oh, okay.
So it's everywhere. Yeah.
Okay. It's good stuff. I mean, one of the reasons why I really wanted to have, to have a podcast was to capture some of these stories. As I said from this beginning, that, I mean, we never get to learn in our schools, of course, because of the guys who set up the syllabus and curriculums. And I feel, I mean, you've given us something that so many people do not know about. So, I mean, this is amazing. It's amazing. Is there anything else that you feel we should know about Comrade Dr. Eduardo Chivambo Mondlane?
I did want to share one of my most inspiring quotes of my grandfather that comes from The Echo of Your Voice, the book, the compilation of letters that my grandmother published. And the quote is him writing a letter to her. He was 33, she was 19, in 1953. And he wrote, "The world is waiting for the time where man will meet others in terms of their human worth and not in terms of color and language. Cultures are merging slowly but surely. There is faster and faster communication, both physical and spiritual. All this means that you and I can be citizens of the world if we so desire. The world is hungering for some people who can dare to go out and meet other human beings. Don't misunderstand me. I do not mean that any one culture is bad or inadequate, but I mean that any one single culture can be inadequate if we make it of it an idol. While we love our own culture, we mustn't forget that it is part and only a part of a bigger world, humanity. This idea is accepted by millions of people today, but it is difficult to find anyone to venture out far except a very few. Let's be of the few. The future generations are going to be thankful that we started, even if our names disappear in the confusion of progress."
Whoa. That was deep. My goodness, your dad had lines. My goodness. Now I understand why. Now I understand why your grandmother was smitten. Amazing. Wow. Beautiful. And probably what you'll do, please, if you can share with me the link to some of this material, probably where people can buy some of these books, and I'll make sure I post them in whatever, when I'm posting this video on YouTube, I'll make sure the link is there so guys can go if they need to buy, and anywhere else, and probably all the titles that are out there. I mean, it would be happy for us. I mean, I'd be very happy to buy some of this material because that's something we need to have.
Absolutely.
Look, we could go on forever. I mean, we've done 1 hour. I believe we've done your grandpa a little bit of justice. So I'm sure someone else will pick up from there. But thank you so much for just coming over and just telling us more about this amazing man. Now I can gratefully say this class is richer and better because what you've shared with us, and even just, I mean, being vulnerable, I mean, sharing some of these things. We say thank you so much. Thank you so much. And we look forward to other conversations in whichever path this world leads us to. But feel free, whenever you feel you want to come back, we'll always be here for you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Thank you for this space. And it truly, since you engaged me until now, it just really does feel like the right place, right time, truly.
Good stuff. Wonderful.
Best.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we have in having Janet Rodriguez Mondlane and talking about this African legend of Dr. Eduardo Chivambo Mondlane. We hope you learned something. Drop your comments, give us your feedback, and we plan to go in other directions. We'll be having something on the legendary musician Franco coming soon. We're having something on Julius Nyerere very soon. So a lot nice stuff lined along the way. So keep subscribing, liking the content, and sharing with your colleagues or your friends or whoever. So otherwise, thank you so much, and do have a wonderful day, evening, night ahead. Thank you so much.